Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In this video, I wanted to talk about some more of Azure governance and especially how you can use the power of Azure policy to remediate some insecure configurations within your Azure resources. Now, when we think about cloud and the components that make up the cloud, the basic components, one would be your network. Second would be your compute, and third is going to be a storage. And as a matter of fact, Azure Storage, it plays a very important role in your journey with Azure. Not only your Azure Storage you can use as a service by itself, Azure Storage is actually used by many other services, many other services. Now, what I want to start is by deploying a storage resource using the default configurations. So what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and start for a search for storage accounts. Okay, so select the storage account. Looks like I have a couple. I'm just gonna create one more for this demonstration. Okay, and I'm gonna create a new resource group. I'm gonna call it storage demo sg. Okay, and in this storage account I'm going to call it something that is globally unique. I'm just trying to come up with a really random global name. That's the weirdest storage account name you have probably seen. And I'm just going to go with all the default options. If you see, I'm not changing anything. But I want you to notice one very important thing about the default setting. Okay. By default, your storage account enables Blob public access. Now I want you to understand that Blob public access, it means anonymous public access. It's not talking about the internet access at this moment. Okay. This Blob public access means once this is enabled, one is permitted to configure container ACLs to allow anonymous access to Blob within the storage. So anybody without any user ID, any password, any SAS key, anything like that can access your storage. That is a huge security risk, but this is enabled by default. So we're going to continue and look at that. This one also enable public access from all networks. Okay, again, as I said, I'm just going to go with the default options that Azure is providing. Now, as this is deploying, think about the zero trust model when you move to the cloud, right? Anyway, so we'll talk about the zero trust another day. But today we are deploying the storage account with the default setting that Azure is providing, and it is creating a storage account with public blob access. Interestingly, Azure actually recommends that you should not create a public blob access where your where it is enabled, and Azure recommends that you should go there and you should disable your public blob public access and then you save. Okay, now think of a situation, okay, where in your environment you have been using it for a while. Since storage account is one of the most basic resources that you absolutely need, even if you start using a subscription or 10 subscriptions for a couple months, you will end up having maybe 50, 100, 500,000 sub-storage accounts. That's going to have this very insecure option enabled. Now you can, of course, go and fix this problem now by hand. Use CLI, use PowerShell, use some other way of doing it, I can create a policy to stop the behavior right now. So in the future, you cannot deploy any other storage account where the blob public access is enabled. Okay, but that does not solve how to fix the existing storage account. Okay, so in this episode, let's break it down and let's do both. So let's, number one, we create a policy. So let's open our notepad. This is our goal. So number one, we're going to create policy to deny public access. And once this policy is verified, we're going to go back and then create a modify policy. This policy is going to go and look for existing storage account, and it is to fix existing storage accounts with public access. Now, where would you find the list? Okay, so let's just go to Azure Defender. Okay, so if I go to the Defender, if it's running properly, it might have already picked up. Okay, now it says my Defender is not yet enabled. Okay, and what we can do, uh, you can look at the recommendation is not even showing up, so you probably have to, well, the upgrade will give you this. So let me just, well, let's stick to the upgrade. Okay, so you don't need to upgrade, you can just skip. The skip will still give you the recommended options. Okay, but I'm just gonna upgrade this one, and I'm gonna use the Defender for the cloud, and this is gonna give me 30 days of trial. Okay, at this time I'm gonna go to recommendation and see if I have already got some recommendations or not. Now you may not immediately see any recommendations in here. Okay, because the recommendations, they run in like 30 minutes, sometimes once in a day for this. And one thing, the recommendation, you can use this particular tool in multiple different environment. Okay, so what we want to do, if this is not showing up over here, we're going to go to the policies. Okay, and in this policy, what we want to do, we want to look for a definition, and in this definition, what we want to do, we want to look for public storage. So the since we are doing this from the policy, so the work that we did with the Defender, you don't need to do if you just do it using the policy here, the way I'm doing. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm looking for, let's say, storage. Okay, so over here I'm looking for storage account, and here you can also look for the storage from here as well to just get a better view or a shorter list. So over here I'm looking for public access. So this is the policy that I need. Storage account public access should be disallowed. So let's open this policy, and what I'm looking at, what are the different enforcement that are available. So I have the audit. Very weird, they have audit both in small letters and in capital letters, small letters and capital letters, small letters, capital letters. That's very, very weird. I have not seen this before, but something new. But the allowed values look like it could be audit, deny, or disable, and the default is audit. So let's first fix the problem. So let's assign the policy, and what I'll do, I'll assign the policy on the whole subscription. Okay, and select the subscription, and we're gonna call it assigned, and storage account public access should be disallowed. Okay, and then we're gonna go to the parameters, and I would like you to uncheck this, if you uncheck, then only you see that this default is actually audit, and you have an opportunity to change it to the deny. And this is again very weird that I have same thing twice. I'm gonna just use the deny from here. Then remediation, okay, this is what we're gonna go and do it with a different policy at the moment. Okay, now I just don't want to focus on this at the moment. I'm just gonna block it. So I'm gonna focus on parameters. I'm not gonna worry about this at all. Non-compliance message, if you want, you can write something nice that uh, storage with public blob access or public anonymous blob access is no longer allowed, right? It's a better way of writing the message, right? So once you do that, you say next, and you create, and you know the effect is a deny effect. So we have successfully created this policy. So if we go to assignment, I should be able to see this policy, it's been assigned. Okay, so at this time, what I can do, I can go back to my storage and try to create another storage account. So let's just try to create another one and put it in our storage demo resource, and again try to come up with some random storage account name and go with the default configurations again. And now the validation is successful. Now some policy, they will get evaluated at this stage, the validation stage. Some other policies will get evaluated at the deployment stage. So let's try to create that one and see what happens. And sometimes the policy enforcement can take some time, but most policies, in my experience, especially the deny policies, that take in effect immediately. So it's what it's telling you now, hey, your public anonymous blob access is no longer allowed, right? So now we have successfully stopped the bleeding. So no one can create a new storage account with the public blob anonymous blob access, right? So what we can do, okay, we can go back, try to create a new storage account again. Okay, storage account, create, and put it in that demo storage. I'm just gonna say this one fixed, and again try to do some random stuff and go to advanced. In this case, I'm just gonna remove the enable public access because this is what is giving us the problem. This should not be allowed. So let's just go. Rest of them are still default options, but now I have disabled my public access, right? So in this case, if I click on my create, my storage account should be allowed to be created. Okay, this is a storage account where I have made sure that when I'm creating, I have already disabled the public access. So with this policy, we have already completed and accomplished this task. Okay, and we have proven that we have tested that if public access is checked, then deployment is denied, right? We have already verified that. So the next goal that we have is create a modify policy where we're going to go and fix the existing storage accounts that were created prior to this particular policy was in place, right? So let's see what we can do about those. So let's go to the policy, and what I wanted to do, let's just go to this particular policy, and these policies, they will actually take some time. If this is not the policy that I wanted, go to assignment and storage accounts. This is the policy that I wanted, And to look at the compliance, you just go to the policy and go to the view compliance field. And you see there is nothing is available at this time. We know there are some failures, right? Some policy failures are in there, but this policy compliance date has not started. So the evaluation has not yet started for this policy. So again, sometimes it may take about 30 minutes. So you need to be just patient and and wait for the results to show up. Now, sometimes you may be able to trigger a policy scan running this particular command. Okay, easy policy state trigger scan. So let's just try that and see what happens if this is gonna help us in any way. Okay, so this is running, and sometimes this policy trigger scan, since we don't really have too many resources, only few policies, it might give us some results quickly. Okay, while this is going on, although we are not seeing the compliance here, but we can go to the storage accounts, and I know if I go to any of these storage accounts, okay, right, and if I look at it, the public access is enabled. This one, public access is disabled for this one, which is good. The fixed one is deployed after the policy enforcement, so this one is disabled, which is good. And the classic storage is actually this one, where the public access is also enabled. So what I want to do, so now in a real enterprise environment, you may have thousands and thousands of these policies, and it's not possible to go and fix it. And I really want to enforce an automation when if somebody fails to enable this one, then policy just go and fix it automatically. They will give you the right configuration. How do you do that? Now, while this policy trigger scan is ongoing, let's work on that modify policy. Okay, and I'll show you the power of the modify policies. So go to the policy, go to the definition, and the modify policies, what I'm noticing Azure is calling either modify, okay, you see the modify, configure, 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 right? Or they just start with configure. Okay, let's see if there is anything for the configure storage. You see, so if I search for configure storage, I see there are two different ones. One is the configure storage account to disable public network access. This is really not what I want though, but there is no default policy for the task that I'm going to do. So no default policy to block or fix deny public access. So I need to write a policy, a custom policy to do my job. So I'm going to open up this policy and actually duplicate this definition, store the definition in my subscription, and change the policy. I'm going to call it configure storage account to disable public blob access, actually anonymous blob access. Okay, and I'm just going to call it modify policy. Okay, just to make it completely clear that this is going to be a modify policy. And over here, all I need to do, okay, this is the rule. So look for whether it's a storage account, and the storage account, the property that I'm going to go after is public blob access. Okay, so to exactly know what you need, I recommend that you go to the storage account. Okay, so let's open up the portal and go to the storage accounts, pick up any storage account that you like. From the storage account, I recommend you go to the JSON view, and in JSON view should be telling us everything that we need, and the thing that we are looking for would be blob. Let's search for blob allow blob public access. So this is now set as true, but we want this as false. So let's just copy that one, come back over here. Instead of public network access, we'll change that to allow blob public access, and instead of disable, we want this to be false. So what I'm saying that, hey, if you see that there is a storage account where this particular setting is not false, then what you do, first you audit, and then what you do, you go and you modify. Okay, then you modify. Okay, so another place you have modify to what is the operation you want. So you want to make that to true or false, right? Sorry, so allow, so value should be false, right? So what you're doing, you're saying, hey, go and check, go and check at the storage account, check at allow blob access. Is it false? If it's not false, if it's not equal false, then you come here, then come here, you audit it, and then you operation. What operation? You go, you either add or replace the current value with false. Okay, and that should be our policy. It's ready. I'm gonna save this, and this policy is gonna create a managed identity, and we're gonna look at how that is done. Okay, so at this time I have the policy ready. Now I can assign the policy at the subscription level, and I'm just gonna call it assigned modify policy. Okay, so what this policy will do, okay, this policy will go and this policy will look at every single storage account under the subscription. Anywhere it has a, a it finds a storage account with public anonymous blob access, is going to fix the problem for me. So what I'll do, I'll run another AZ policy state trigger scan. So maybe this policy is because we have just assigned, it may take another 30 minutes and I don't have that time right now. So let's try to trigger this one as well and see how that works. So what we have done now, we have enabled this policy to stop the blade. Now we have assigned this policy to fix the existing storage account. Right now we are just waiting. Okay, now we are just waiting stage. And I bet that if you wait, say, an hour, all of your storage accounts are going to be fixed. Now let's go back to the definitions and look at the assignments and see if this compliance has some info. Yeah, look at that, right? So since we did the policy scan, we triggered it manually and it was done. Okay, this policy storage account public access should be disallowed is telling us, hey, you got 4 different storage accounts, 2 of them are good, but honey, 2 of the accounts, they're bad. We have these 2 accounts where the public blob access is allowed. So from here you can click to view compliant. So this is the compliant. You can say non-compliant. So this is the non-compliant, or you can say all. Can you say all? I thought you can, but looks like you don't have the all button here. So the all would be at the middle, right? So 4 is total, 2 compliant, 2 non-compliant. Okay, one thing I don't think I have done, so let's go back to the assignments one more time and look at the modify policy. One thing that you absolutely have to do when you are creating the modify policies is look at effect. So that is good. The remediation. Okay, so what we have done, we have not created any remediation task. Okay, so what will happen, by default this assignment will only take effect when new resources are created. Existing resources can be updated via remediation tag after the policy is assigned. Okay, so if you don't do this, create a remediation tag automatically, you will have to go and create the task manually. Another thing that you should know, that you can either use a manage identity, a system assigned manage identity, or a user assigned manage identity. Now, I personally prefer the system assigned manage identity because this identity is going to be tied to this policy. For whatever reason, if you remove the policy, this identity will also be removed. Okay, so I have a less headache managing my identity within my Active Directory resource. Okay, so for this one, I'm not going to change this one. What we'll do, we'll just create a remediation task so you know how to create the task manually after creating the policy. So let's just go back to the policy. And even for this policy, our trigger scan is running. Let's see if this policy picked up anything just yet. So it says that not started. Okay. So what is going to happen in few minutes? It will also pick up, okay, that there are those two storage accounts that needs attention. Once that is done, we will be able to create a remediation task by clicking this remediation task button that we have available here. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes and see if we can actually wait for a few minutes and do this together here. Give me a second. All right, everyone. So it took a little bit of time, but this policy that we have created now, which is a modify policy, this policy has also picked up these two resources, okay, that are non-compliant. Okay. So if you see now, these two resources are compliant, and here I have two resources that are non-compliant. So again, be patient after you apply the policy. It may take just a little bit of time, sometimes take few hours to populate this course. Like over here, it is clearly now identified these two resources are non-compliant and these two resources are compliant, which we agree, but this statistics over here is not yet updated. But the beauty of this policy, okay, so before I do anything, let's just go back to the other policy that we have, storage account public access. So this and the modify policy should give you the exact same result. So for here, this is actually properly updated. Here are the two resources, test classic storage and 5TE, they are non-compliant. But with this policy, I cannot fix it. Okay, there is no way to fix the problem that I have. But the beauty of a modify policy, if I can go there, okay, look at the compliance, okay, so these are the non-compliance. I can easily create a remediation task. So if you click on the remediation task now, okay, what is going to happen? It will bring up the remediation task. And how many resources do you want to fix at a time? So 500, there are only two resources, so 500 default is fine. Tame parallel deployment is fine. Resource to remediate in what scope, that is fine. And these are the two resources. Okay, a location, you don't need to really choose anything, so these resources are showing up over here. Sometimes if you have resources in multiple locations, you can choose here. Okay, all you need to do is now is to click on the remediate button. So what the remediate button does, it creates a remediation job, okay, a remediation task. The remediation task is wonderful. Now think about a situation as I talked about. You could have hundreds and thousands of the storage account, and if you're not using the policy, right, you may have to go and do it either manually or using some complicated CLI or parcel script or some other automation. With policy, it just goes and that remediation task is going to go ahead and fix all of the problem for us. And to know how the remediation tasks are going, you can go back to the policy blade, and here is the remediation. On the left hand side, you can click on it. This remediation blade, it gives you the number of remediation tasks that you create. So over here is policies to remediate, and then here it is your remediation task. So you click on the remediation task. What it looks like, it over here, okay, there is one remediation task, looks like it is pending, and another remediation task looks like it's already done. Very interesting. So let's just go back to the assignment one more time. Just pick up any of this compliance, and sometimes when the remediations are done, it can take some time to actually the policy to update, because policy is not running all the time, right? So let's just go and search this. So this is still showing up as a non-compliance. If my remediation job is successful, my blob access should be disabled, and it is disabled now, right? So let's go back and check the other storage as well. Okay, so yeah, look at that. Now the non-compliant is actually gone. So the policies now is speaking up. It's still taking a little bit of time to reflect this, but it will get there shortly. So let's go back to the policy, and let's look at the assignment. Look at this one more time, and view compliance, and look at that, there's no non-compliant. If I go to the compliant, look at that, all of them are compliant. So this statistics, again, as I said, it will take a little bit of time to update, but my remediation policy has already fixed it. And the fix is not actually done with this policy, right? The fix is done using the modify policy. So if you go to the modify policy, if you view the compliance, okay, there is nothing non-compliant. And if you look at compliant resources, all of them are now compliant. So I would like to end the video here for now. Okay, so I hope you understand the power of modify policy, okay, power of a remediation task, and how it can impact and fix security configuration across the board. Even if you have hundreds of subscriptions, you can put them together under a management group tree, and you can apply these kind of policies at the management group. It will go to every single resource. Wherever it finds some insecure configuration, it can fix it for you. It's a very, very powerful technique, and a very wonderful, it's a wonderful tool for Azure governance, okay, and creating reports. So I would like you to try out the things that we have tried here today, and see if you can replicate and use it in your own environment and make use of the power of remediation task. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment below. And also, if you feel like this video is useful, give me a thumbs up, join my channel, and share with your friends. Thank you very much.